Dear friends, today I want to talk about Swan Bharat Party's position regarding the lateral entry advertisement that Modi government has issued recently. I have also written about this, the Swan Bharat Party's position in CNN News 18, and you can Google that and get my article. I'll also put it at the bottom of this YouTube video. So the first thing is we have seen Mr. Modi avoid doing anything, basically any reform for the past many years. But this particular one is actually a reform. And even though it's a very feeble and weak reform, it actually is the first step, we believe, in our party's manifesto as well, a first step towards the more full-fledged reform of the Indian bureaucracy. If the Swan Bharat Party government had been in power, we would have implemented this step within the first 3 months and in a much more effective manner, not just 10 positions. What we would have done is we would have stopped all recruitments at the joint secretary level, transfers from the states. We would have completely frozen them for a while, and all new positions would have been put out in the open market of joint secretary and above. But of course, this might have taken a little bit longer than 3 months given the need to set up full-fledged systems to make it operational. But even leaving aside that issue, whether it's 3 months or 6 months, it has taken the Modi government 4 years and 1 month to implement this essential first step towards the reform of the bureaucracy. Despite it being very weak, we congratulate Mr. Modi for this decision. Despite the many weaknesses in this particular proposal this particular initiative that has been implemented, and people are criticizing it on many grounds, and I really agree with them partly, but I think at the end of the day, what we need to see is the big picture. What is the purpose of this reform, and why are we doing this in the first place? We all know that India has one of the world's worst governance systems. India performs badly on almost any global indicator of development or performance. You consider the recent one that came out on the environment, India definitely has to be at the bottom. There is no doubt about it. Freedom of press, we definitely have to be there at the bottom. Recently, the Modi government has further attacked freedom of press quite aggressively, and we definitely are going down the drain, or even on that. So with this particular background, that India's governance system is in shambles, what should have been the most important thing for the Modi government to have done? It was nothing but governance reforms. And I have written about this and spoken about this for a very long time, at least publicly from the 2008 book, Breaking Free of Nehru. Much of that has flown into the Swan Bharat Party's manifesto. But keep in mind here that this bad governance needs fixing, but not in a piecemeal manner. Lateral entry is not the solution. It is a very first step towards the complete package of solutions. So what are the kind of things we expect to see in India as a party? What we expect to see is the end of part 14 of the Constitution. Not many people understand that there is no other constitution in the world of any status or comparable standing like India's democracy. Definitely no major democracy which is successful, which has got the bureaucracy, even the mention of the bureaucracy in its constitution, leave alone a complete section with so many articles like India has. So we need to get rid of that, because there is no place for a bureaucracy, which is nothing but a machine of government. A constitution must only focus on the main government, the main purpose of government, and the main process of government, elections, judiciary, president, etc., etc. It has no business to talk about the minor details of how a government will run. And this is why we need a Public Administration Act, which will replace the Constitution, which also is very interesting because Constitution Article 311 provides the bureaucrats with powers and protections which are so extraordinary that they exceed the protections of any ordinary citizen on almost any issue. What have we done in this country? We have created a country for the bureaucrats. not for the common man. We have allowed the bureaucrats to get so much protection that they cannot be removed for non-performance. Forget about non-performance, even for corruption they cannot be removed. We have got cases, I won't mention the name, but there are cases publicly available. You can check 5,000 pages of evidence against a particular IAS officer, and yet he manages to go scot-free. In fact, Modi last year apparently terminated his services, or premature retirement was given to this man, but then he has gone to CAT. So we essentially can say that there is no hope, and the CAT reinstated him back into the IAS. There we go. So the Article 311 is like we have created a complete layer of, there are two, we call a first class citizen, second class citizen, and indeed we are first class citizens. I refer to me when I was in the IAS. We were first class citizens. We had all the rights and all the powers and everything combined. And you, the ordinary people, had nothing. Well, I quit the job because it is a complete piece of waste of time in terms of trying to reform anything from within the system. So I had to move out of the job. But the point I'm saying is that the bureaucracy does not need any protection apart from the general protections and rights which are there in the Constitution. The very idea that the bureaucracy should have extra rights than what citizens have is anathemical to the very idea of democracy. What kind of a democracy was designed for us? And I understand that Sardar Patel did the right thing at the time when he recommended the continuation of the British colonial system, and we have no issues with that. But what we believe is that should have been done through an act of parliament rather than in the Constitution. So our party will get rid of this. We will then replace it with the Public Administration Act, which allows complete flexibility in terms of hiring and firing of officials. A lot of people worry that, what about these politicians? Are they in a position to hire good people in India? Well, really, if you think about it for a minute, it is not so much the hiring which is the problem. Much more important is the firing. If somebody bad is hired by no matter what accident, and I can assure you that the UPSC method is not at all foolproof. If you look at the way the UPSC exam is organized, the way the marking is done, the way the interview is done, it's a pretty ad hoc system. For anyone to claim that IAS officer is somewhat smarter than others is nonsense. I can assure you that there is no difference at all between the IAS officer and the rest of the top 1% or 2% of Indian community. Practically anybody in that group can become a bureaucrat and do the job well. What is really important is the accountability, the ability to fire. And we do not have that ability to fire. What we will create is a system by which you can fire these people for bad performance. So it doesn't matter to me, and doesn't matter to Swarn Bharat Party, how these 10 people are selected for the lateral entry. What is really important is whether they can be fired, and yes, they can be fired within 3 months notice. And I would say this is a bit of excessive. They should be fired on 1 month's notice. But and they should be just walked out and a salary given to them, whatever 1 month or 3 months salary, and then they're fired and removed from the job for non-performance. Leave alone corruption. Corruption, of course, they must be fired instantly and even put behind bars. We have all the acts and Prevention of Corruption Act and all the other acts for that purpose. So when the system becomes accountable, when the accountability starts from the top in the bureaucracy, look, I will insist and I will mention that our party's position is that electoral reforms must come first. This is something that the Modi government has not at all looked at. He personally had mentioned state funding of elections in one of his BJP meetings a couple of years ago, but then did nothing about it. Well, Modi needs to really implement state funding of elections. And I'll come to that in a separate talk. And I've actually given this, mentioned this in a number of places, including an article in the Wire magazine, where we provided the party's position on state funding of elections and why it's important to be on a per vote basis. But let us assume for a minute that you have to have good, honest politicians. Then should we as people not trust our politicians to select bureaucrats for us? Because we tell the politicians to give us the good road or to give us a particular service like law and order and so on. And then we tell the politician you can't fire these people who have been hired by somebody else, like a UPSC. Who is UPSC to hire anybody who's a bureaucrat? A bureaucrat should be hired by the politician, and then the next so he should hire the chief secretary or the next secretary or whatever. The next person will hire the person below him, and so on down the line. That is how the private sector works. That is how Australia works. There is no question whatsoever of any third party or hiring people for us in the government. It is the politician who is responsible for delivering services to the people. Please give the politician a free hand. He needs to hire people so that they can deliver the work. And then if the politician doesn't deliver, you throw out the politician. And the politician will not hire people who cannot deliver, because then the politician will be thrown out by the people. So really, this is where accountability means a complete line of sight from you as a citizen up to the point where the politician has the accountability. Politicians' accountability is linked dramatically and deeply with the bureaucrats' accountability. But in India, as I said, the bureaucrats are first-class citizens and politicians are second-class citizens. They cannot fire bureaucrats. They can only transfer them. Transfer is absolute nonsense. A bad person, if you think he's not good for the job, just throw him out. So there is in Australia, every position is permanent and for a particular role. In India, we have an issue that every politician comes and they start transferring officers. So they transfer officers like shuffling cards for 3 months, for 4 months, and so on. And I have had so many transfers. What is the point of having this transfer system? You should hire people for a particular role. The person will do the job well. If he's not performing, throw him out. End of the story. If he's performing, let him continue. It's as simple as that. And this is how the people will get the benefits of the bureaucracy. So overall, the Modi has started a good process, but it's very feeble, very weak. We really don't care how he selects people. We really care that he fires people, that he can fire people. As I said, Modi could not fire an IAS officer who has been proven to be corrupt for 10 years. He failed. Modi failed to do that. People say Modi is a great administrator. Sorry, he doesn't know much about anything. And unfortunately, I'm sorry to say that, but his performance has been so pathetic. Anyone can see what's going on in India. It's so bad. The poverty and the filth, everything continues the way it was. So Modi why is he not talking about getting rid of Part 14 of the Constitution? He could not get rid of a corrupt IAS officer, right? And now he's trying to do lateral entry. That's fine, do it. But fix the system. Do not forget the big picture while doing this little small thing called lateral entry. That is at the most a first step. And now I'm expecting the Modi government to really take on the remaining steps to take this process to its logical conclusion. We have given a complete transition path that can be potentially improved. We are happy to participate in the process with Modi government for 2 reforms. One is state funding of elections on per vote basis, and 2, we are in the bureaucracy reform. If Modi wants our help, we are here to help Modi. But we will fight against all these other bad policies. And we have written and fought against the policy about the petrol taxes and so on. He is not a reformer. He is making things worse. Now, this good thing he has done, let us congratulate him, but he must now do the necessary next steps. All right. Thank you very much.